In this study, we tested the reaction times of football players, esport players, and those who do not participate in either. Reaction time is the time interval between a signal and the reaction to it. Previous studies have measured reaction times through responses to visual, sound, and tactile stimuli. The ruler drop test is also an example of a visual stimulus. Different stimuli can also have different reaction times. Studies have found that those who play in competitive video games have better hand-eye coordination and respond faster to flash stimulation than non-gamers. Trained first-person shooting gamers also had faster reaction times than those who were trained to play Sims. This helped us decide on using competitive esport players as a group since they went on action game tournaments. Likewise, physical athletes have faster reaction times than those who are not athletes. Previous studies have shown that a faster reaction time for sprinters allows for faster performance, along with visual cues being faster in tennis players compared to non-athletes. Currently, there are no known direct comparisons between esport players and physical athletes for their reaction times, and that is what we attempted to do here. Our hypothesis for the study was that esport players will have a faster overall reaction time than football players. This is on the premise of the amount of stimuli that esport players receive compared to football players and the relation to the theory of feed-forward processing. Feed-forward processing relates to what we see as muscle memory. If you are introduced to a stimuli continuously over long periods of time, you start to predict what will happen subconsciously even before you start to react, therefore improving your reaction time. This is the idea for the premise of why athletes and esport players have faster reaction times. Following this idea, continuous strenuous activity for the mind can create even faster reaction times. Football players take breaks between plays, whereas esports players can be in a match anywhere from 6 minutes to 40 minutes without much of a break, causing an increase in their mind's processing. For our IRB-approved study, we tested 36 male ONU students between the ages of 18 and 22. There were 12 students per testing group, and we had 3 testing groups. Our first testing group was that of the ONU football team players. These subjects could not be involved in competitive video games and could not be currently involved in other sports. Our second testing group was the competitive esport players from the ONU esports team, and none of the subjects could be involved in the past 5 years in a physical sport. Our control group consisted of male students who did not participate in competitive gaming, nor were they active in an athletic sport in the past 5 years. For the study, we conducted 4 different tests measuring 3 parameters, given in random order and in duplicate. The first test was the color cue test, which tested visual stimuli. This test was conducted on the computer, and the subject would watch a red screen, and when the subject saw the screen change to green, they had to click the mouse pad. This test was measured in milliseconds. The second test that we conducted is the sound cue test, which tested auditory stimuli. Similar to the color cue, it was conducted on the computer. The subject's eyes would be closed, and when they heard the sound from the computer, they would click the spacebar. This test was also measured in milliseconds. The third test was the ruler drop test, which also tested visual stimuli. The subject would place his forearm on the table with his hand over the edge of the table, and the hand was in the cupped C shape. A ruler would be placed at the top of the fingers, and then the subject, when they saw the ruler drop from the hand, they would grab the ruler as fast as possible. The distance traveled would be recorded and converted into milliseconds. The final test was the probe grabbing test, which tested tactile stimuli. With the subject eyes closed and their palm open on a table, a pen was used as a probe to lay across the hands of the subject while being recorded. As soon as the subject felt the probe in their hand, they were to close their hand fully as fast as they could. Video recording was taken of this occurrence, and it was used to get an accurate time for how long it took from the initial contact of the probe to the full grip of the subject's hand, and it was measured using a video editing software to go frame by frame. ANOVA tests were conducted for all groups, and if significance was found, a post hoc t-test was conducted.
And these are what we found. As you can see in this graph and the other ones, lower reaction time means faster reaction times. Asterisks indicate significance. For this color cue test, esport has significantly faster reaction times than controls, but controls versus football and football versus esport are not significantly different. These results are similar to those in a study by Green and others, which tested response by gamers and non-gamers to visual cues on a computer screen. However, they didn't take into account whether the participants play physical sports or not. For the rule drop test, both esport and football have significantly faster reaction times than the controls, although there's no significant difference between football and esport. We can explain the results of esport with findings from other studies. They found that compared to non-gamers, gamers has better hand-eye coordination and faster saccadic reaction time. In this case, it means eye movement in response to a visual stimulus. Esport would have had an advantage in the ruler drop since this test was based on response on object's movement. For the sound cue test, there was no significant difference between groups. For the probe grabbing test, again, both esport and football have significantly faster reaction times than control, but no significant difference between football and esport. This is also the only test in which football had faster reaction times than esport, which we expected because football athletes had plenty of exposure to tactile stimuli through grabbing and touching, whereas in gaming, gamers are only exposed to visual and auditory cues. Overall reaction times are represented by composite reaction times. These score incorporated reaction times from all three stimuli: visual, auditory, and tactile. Esport and football has significantly faster composite reaction times than control, which we expected, and although no significance was found between football and esport trended towards having the fastest reaction times, followed by football, and last is control. This trend is similar to results from all tests except probe grabbing. This is to compare reaction times of everyone in each test, and all four tests had significantly different reaction times from each other. Reaction time to tactile stimuli was faster than to visual stimuli, similar to what Gottloff and others have found. Reaction time to visual stimuli was faster than to auditory stimuli. Spear and others achieved the same results when they tested on soccer players. On the other hand, Jane and others found the opposite, that auditory reaction time was faster than to visual among medical students of various lifestyles. Ruler drop is an interesting test here, having the fastest reaction time of all. We think it might have been due to co-activation, meaning when there are two simultaneous signals of different modalities, reaction time is faster than when there's only one signal. It's possible that in addition to seeing the ruler falling, the subject also felt a non-contact pressure generated by ruler's movement.
In conclusion, our study found that both football players and esport players have faster composite reaction times than the control group. Although there was a trend towards esport players having faster composite reaction times than football players, the data was not significant enough to state this with certainty. Involvement in esports and football was associated with faster reaction times, but it is unclear whether these activities improved reaction times or people with inherently fast reaction times were just good at gaming or sports. Further research on this topic should focus on pre-trained and post-trained individuals and also expand testing to other physical sports besides football.
Thank you for the attention. We'll be happy to answer some questions.